Hi there guys, in this video we're going to be looking at the NSC Math Paper 1 from June 2019 and we're just looking at question 1 because this is the only question that deals with algebra in particular. So we'll be having a look at different kind of equations, solving x, whether it be a quadratic equation, simultaneous equation, surd equation, whatever it may be. And yeah, I think we're also going to have a look at an inequality. But let's first have a look at the first question, which is x squared minus 5x minus 6, and this is equal to 0. Okay, so a couple of ways to do this, but I guess the most immediate or fastest way to do this is to factorize the trinomial. So I'm going to do that by opening up a set of brackets. Okay, now we need to find the factors of 6 minus together to give us negative 5. Okay, so the factors of 6 is either 6 and 1 or 3 and 2. Now since we are minusing our factors, 3 minus 2 gives us 1. Or if I do it the other way around, 2 minus 3, that gives us negative 1. Neither of those answers is the one we're looking for. We're looking for negative 5. So I have to look at my other pair, 6 and 1. Now 6 minus 1 gives us 5, but 1 minus 6 gives us negative 5. So 1 has to be positive and 6 negative. 1 minus 6, meaning the 1 is positive and the 6 is negative. And for this trinomial, x is either equal to 6 or x is equal to negative 1. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So for this one, we are going to have to multiply the brackets out first. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 4 is negative 12x. Negative 1 times x is just negative x. And negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. Now this is still equal to 16. But if I take the 16 across, I can form a trinomial. Let's first add these two like terms. So minus 12x minus 1 is minus 13x. And 4, if I take the 16 over, that's minus 16. So 4 minus 16 is negative 12. Now, even though this trinomial looks very familiar and similar to the previous one, we can't solve it in the same way we did that one. So we'll have to resort to the quadratic formula, because this can't be factorized. I've tried, I've used the factors of 3 and 12 to give us negative 13. It didn't work out because our factors, we need to minus them. If this was a plus 12, that changes things. Then it can be factorized. But for now, we're going to be using the quadratic formula. So A is equal to 3, B is negative 13, and C is negative 12. Let's substitute these values into the quadratic formula. So there's my substitution. Now the answer for the plus is 5.11, or actually 5.12 if you're rounding up. So I'll just indicate approximately. And then for the minus, it's it's negative 0.78 approximately. So these are our answers coming from this quadratic formula once we substitute the values a, b, and c. Okay, moving on to the third question. We have an inequality now. We're also going to be solving x. This time it's 4x minus x squared greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so let's first factorize. Factorizing will be easy because I can just take out x as a common factor, and inside the bracket I'm left with 4 minus the x here. There'll still be 1 left. This is greater than 0. Now I like to have the x squared as positive, so maybe I should have first swapped it around, but I'm going to do that now. In fact, I'm going to divide this bracket by a negative. Now when you divide this bracket by the negative, x becomes positive and 4 becomes negative. Okay, so they kind of just swap signs once you divide by negative. But then also, since I'm dividing this side by negative, I need to do the same to the right hand side. but 0 divided by negative is still 0. But what will happen now is the sign will change. So please remember this, whenever you're dividing by a negative, the sign must change. Okay, now before we go further, let's just write out our critical values. So x is either equal to 0 or x is equal to 4. These are the critical values that come from that equation. Now, I'm going to draw the parabola. Okay, this is the quadratic function to represent this quadratic inequality. And this point will be 0 and this point will be 4. Right. So less than 0, or yeah, in this case it's now less than or equal to 0. It's going to be the entire part of this quadratic function that is less than 0. So it's all the x values greater than 0 and less than 4. It's these x values that is represented here. All the x values greater than 0 but less than or equal to 4. Okay, now question number 4. I like this question in particular because it's not necessarily an exponent equation, even though we are going to be using some exponent laws. It's also not a linear fraction type equation, but there is a fraction. And it's also not a factorizing question. But in fact, we're going to be using all 3 of those techniques to solve this one. We'll first start by factorizing. Notice on top we have 5 to the power of 2x minus 1. And then we have 5 to the power of x plus 1. Now, since this is 5 to the power of 2x, I can actually write this as 5 to the power of x squared. So let me do that here. This can be written as 5 to the power of x all squared. Okay, now why did I write it like that? Because I want to factorize the numerator. I want to factorize this using difference of squares. So let me open up a set of brackets and I'm going to do my difference of squares. Okay, so I have this term here, 5x plus 1, and then 5x minus 1. That's my difference of squares. Notice now this bracket cancels with this one, and so you basically just have 5 to the power of x minus 1 equal to 4. And this you can solve like a piece of cake. If you take the negative 1 over, 5 to the power of x is equal to 4 plus 1, which is 5. And this is just 5 to the power of invisible 1. So if you drop the bases and make the exponents equal, x is equal to 1. You can verify with the original equation to check if this is correct. Now this last question requires us to solve x and y simultaneously using these 2 equations. I'm going to read it to you because I noticed that there's a bit of a glare over here. So we have x plus 3y equal to 2 and x squared plus 4xy minus 5 equal to 0. Let's start by using this equation and making x the subject of the formula. Now to do that, I can simply take the 3y across and x is equal to 2 minus 3y. Now this answer for x, the 2 minus 3y, I'm going to substitute that with the x in this equation. But not only there, also in this position where there's another x. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my equation as follows. 2 minus 3y squared, this is instead of the x squared. And then we have plus 4 times this x, which is 2 minus 3y. And then we still have the y over there, minus 5 equal to 0. Now, let's FOIL out and then solve completely. This is 4 minus the product of the 2 terms doubled. So that's 2 times 3 doubled, which is 12y. And then 3 squared is 9y squared. Okay, so I'm going to multiply the 4 and the y with the 2 terms inside. 4 times 2 is 8, and then with the y, so it's 8y. 4 times 3 is 12. With the y is y squared. We have the minus 5 equal to 0. Lastly, let's just add our like terms. So we'll start with the squareds. This is 9y squared minus 12y squared. That is negative 3y squared. Then we have negative 12y plus 8y, and that's equal to negative 4y. And then lastly, our constants, 4 minus 5, and that's just negative 1, if I added all of those correctly. Okay, so let's factorize this. I'm first going to divide by a negative on both sides. Okay, so all the signs should change. 3y, y, because the factors of 3 is just 3 and 1. Then the factors of 1 is also just 1 and 1, and all the signs will be positive. And this, if you multiply this out, does give us that top expression. So the answers for y here is either negative a third or negative 1. So that's written over here. Let's use these answers now to solve x. Since we know what y is, we can actually use this original equation to solve x. Remember, x is equal to 2 minus 3y. So we're just going to substitute these values in for y. So x is equal to 2 minus 3y, which in this case is negative a third. And if we do the math, that is equal to 3. And x minus 3y, if y is equal to negative 1. Again, if you do the math, x is equal to 5. So these are answers for x, and those are the answers for y. And you're done.